Jeb Bush, as in our New Hampshire focus group, sort of the best thing you could say about how he comes out of that group is he's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I was sort of struck by the observation that he doesn't have the charisma of his father, which is frankly not a way I've ever heard George H.W. Bush described before. But you're absolutely right, Mark. We saw this in New Hampshire. We saw it now just in Iowa. And the Republican Party primary voters and caucus attenders in Iowa are not very excited about Jeb Bush, and many of them don't think he can win, which is interesting because, you know, even the people who aren't very excited about Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side do think she can win. So I think that's a really big problem for Jeb Bush.
Well, I thought it was really striking, Steve, in the point you just made, which was that back in New Hampshire, when we talked to Republicans there, they didn't like him for ideological reasons. They said he's not conservative enough. He's the Common Core is a problem. Immigration's a problem. These Iowans didn't care about any of that. They cared about the name and electability. And so it's like he's got two sets of problems with two different sets of voters, but it's all bad.
Right. That's exactly right. Two sets of problems, two different groups of voters. They're all bad. And by the way, I think if you went into New Hampshire and you started talking about, the fact that it's a Bush and do we really want to do this again and can he win, I think you would have heard those same things. And likewise with the Iowa voters, some of them didn't really know what Common Core was. But if you explained it to them and they understood it better, I think they would object just like conservative voters do everywhere. Remember, the Iowa caucus attendee on the Republican side is very conservative. The caucus produces winners like Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee, not exactly people who are mainstream Republicans or who could win a general election. So they would all be troubled by George Bush's record as a governor.
Steve, a lot of nice things.
I think you mean Jeb Bush, but that's all right.
A lot of nice things.
I'm sorry, Jeb Bush.
A lot of nice things said
they
about.
They all run together. They're all Bushes.
A lot of nice things said about Marco Rubio in that focus group. The Republican Party has never, in the modern era, nominated someone his age, his relative inexperience. What is driving, you think, based on that group and what else you've seen? What is driving this attraction to Rubio?
Well, it's really interesting, and I'll say this, I'm not trying to hurt Marco Rubio, although it might have that effect. I would say that he is the Barack Obama of the Republican Party right now. His life story is captivating to people. When he stands in front of a room and he talks about his immigrant parents and his father who came from Cuba and stood behind the bar in the back of the room so that Marco Rubio could stand in front of a podium on a stage in front of the room, that just melts your heart. It melts my heart. I think he's got a very compelling story, and people are drawn to him. And I would say Marco Rubio is a rocket ship on the launch pad in Iowa and nationally.
You know what impressed me?
I think he's going to be the nominee.
I think he's going
to be the nominee.
People kind of made fun of him for announcing the same day as Hillary Clinton, maybe being overshadowed. But it's pretty clear from that group that a guy who's not been to Iowa very often, his message is burned in. People know about his story, and that's obviously one of the most compelling things he's selling.
His message is burned in, and I actually think that the Rubio campaign has really executed beautifully, because standing on the podium announcing the same day as Hillary Clinton is a little bit like stepping up onto the podium and in a presidential debate. If you're the challenger, it immediately gives you stature, and if you perform well, it really puts you in a good position. I think Marco Rubio has done himself nothing but good every single day in this campaign so far.
Steve, I'll tell you, sitting there in the room with those Republicans, we talked about Marco Rubio just now, and there was a little bit of excitement around Rubio. The other person around whom there was excitement, a genuine kind of like a little electrical buzz in the room, was Carly Fiorina. I guess my question to you is, A, what do you think it is that they find appealing about her? But secondly, given that is true, and it's been true in a bunch of places around the country in the last few months, why is she not considered a top-tier candidate in the Republican field?
Well, I think one of the reasons she's not considered a top-tier candidate is because people haven't seen this kind of research. And a lot of times what you see in research like this is a preview of the future. And I was struck by exactly what you were struck by, which is the strength of Carly Fiorina among this group. And frankly, if you think about what animates Republican primary voters more than anything else, it's who can, usually it's who can hate Barack Obama the most. But in this case, it might be who can stand up and go toe-to-toe with Hillary Clinton the best. And somebody in that group mentioned that Carly Fiorina would give Hillary Clinton hell. And I think that's why she may be the underdog, the candidate to watch in Iowa, because everybody's aware of Marco Rubio, but nobody's aware of Carly Fiorina. And to the extent that she goes hard after Hillary and she becomes the anti-Hillary, she's going to become more and more attractive to that very conservative Iowa Republican caucus voter.
Steve, just quickly go back to Bush. If you were a Bush advisor, and that was a focus group conducted for the Bush operation, and you watched it, what was the one or two sentences you'd say to Jeb about what he needed to do in reaction to it?
Well, I think Jeb needs to strike out some very clear positions on some issues that are important to conservatives. He needs to stop talking about his brother in the past and start talking about the future. He needs to be aspirational, positive, and he needs to tell people why he can take us to a better place than we're sitting in today. And frankly, he hasn't done any of that.